What if touching the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth could instantly make your legs like 30% stronger?
Right. It sounds totally made up.
Yeah, it sounds like some kind of parlor trick or something. But modern science is actually proving that a tiny, mechanical shift like that is actively hacking human biomechanics.
In doing so, by tapping into this whole physiological network that we completely ignore in our standard daily lives.
Exactly. So, welcome to this deep dive. Today, our mission is to basically decode a physical and martial landscape it's completely counterintuitive to the modern mind.
Highly counterintuitive.
You've probably seen people practicing Tai Chi. Like maybe you're watching a video demonstration right now of a long form being practiced in a beautiful public park.
Yeah, moving with that incredible slow precision.
Right. And it just looks like a relaxing dance. But what we're unpacking from our stack of sources today is the hidden science and the ancient martial logic behind those seemingly, gentle movements.
We are looking at two really highly detailed texts to do this. There's a rigorous master's thesis on the biomechanics and scientific validation of internal martial arts posture training,
Mm-hmm.
and we're looking at that alongside a foundational instructional book on Wutan Tai Chi.
And the promise here is massive. I mean, we are talking about a system designed for profound physical health and devastating self-defense.
Yeah.
And honestly, the most compelling part for anyone listening right now, as you watch someone flow through these postures, realizing how little physical space they actually take up, you see that it requires literally zero gym equipment.
No gym membership required.
Exactly. It is entirely designed to be learned and practiced right in the comfort of your own living room. Which is why getting an online course to learn the hand form is just so accessible. But to get to that 30% strength hack, or the martial applications, we first have to start with the blueprint.
At a foundation.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this. How do you take a beginner and teach them something that looks this fluid and intricate without just completely overwhelming them?
Well, the instructional text breaks this down brilliantly, actually, because the practice focuses entirely on solo posture work, moving mindfully, without any special gear. It doesn't just throw a beginner straight into that continuous flowing dance you see in the park.
That would be a disaster.
Right. It uses a highly structured two-stage process. So first you learn what they call the square form.
And the text uses a fantastic analogy here. It compares learning the square form to a child learning to print block letters.
That's a great way to put it.
You have to understand the individual rigid strokes before you can link them together, so it's segmented. Posture 1, stop. Verify your geometry. Posture 2, stop.
Yeah, the square form is essentially architectural isolation.
Yeah.
You are mapping the exact angles of your joints.
Right.
And only after mastering those rigid block letters do you actually advance to the round form. And that is where the movements become that fluid, cursive handwriting.
But I have to ask, because, even with the block letters approach, the movements themselves look incredibly precise. If you are just in your living room following an online Tai Chi course, how do you self-correct a dozen tiny mechanical angles without a master physically, adjusting your shoulders and hips?
What's fascinating here is that the master's thesis dives into the modern motor learning science behind how this is traditionally taught. Because when a human tries to learn a complex physical movement, cognitive overload is the enemy.
Break that down for me. What does cognitive overload look like in this specific context?
Well, if an instruction manual tells you, okay, shift your weight backward, bend your left knee to a 45-degree angle, rotate your pelvis slightly inward, elevate your deltoid, and drop your elbow.
Just hearing that stresses me out.
Right. Your prefrontal cortex, the analytical part of your brain that tries to process all those variables simultaneously, and you just freeze up.
Yeah.
The human nervous system cannot parse that much isolated mechanical data smoothly. You end up moving like a broken robot.
Which perfectly explains the flowery names.
Precisely. To bypass that paralysis, traditional instruction uses flowery imagery.
Because you hear these names like white crane flaps its wings or snake creeps down, and you naturally assume it's just, ancient poetry meant to make the practice sound really mystical.
But it is actually a highly validated, scientifically sound learning tool.
Wow.
Instead of giving you a massive list of jade angles, the instruction asks you to embody the intent of a crane spreading its wings.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, your brain naturally knows how to coordinate your whole body, your shoulders, your elbows, your breath, to achieve a singular unified intent. It bypasses the analytical mind entirely and speaks directly to the cerebellum.
which handles your motor control.
Exactly.
That is just brilliant design. You are practicing the rigid block letters of the square form while visualizing the animal, and your nervous system just organically figures out the micromechanics. You don't have to overthink it in your living room.
Right. It accelerates skill acquisition significantly.
Yeah.
You're using the imagery to unify the body's structure without the sheer frustration of micromanaging every single muscle.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the next massive question.
Okay.
Even once you learn the movements, right, whether it's the block letters or the cursive, why on earth are they performed so slowly?
Yeah.
When you watch a demonstration of the long form, it is mesmerizing, sure, but it looks like they're moving through molasses.
Well, the slowness is literally the engine of the entire system.
Yeah.
It transforms the human body from a static object into a highly efficient, health-generating machine.
Okay.
And to understand why, we have to look at what's happening internally, starting with what the sources refer to as the second heart.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the heart in the chest is obviously pushing blood out, but getting venous blood back up from the legs against gravity is, it's a lot of work.
It's a huge mechanical challenge for the body. Normally, we rely on the dynamic contraction of our leg muscles while walking or running to help squeeze those veins and push the blood back up. But the Tai Chi hand form uses deep, sustained stances. Your knees are continuously bent to varying degrees, and you are just slowly shifting weight from one leg to the other.
So you are basically holding these deep isometric contractions.
Yes. That continuous isometric muscle work acts as a massive, forceful pump for both blood and lymphatic fluid.
Wow.
You are forcefully circulating nutrients and clearing waste from the lower extremities back up to the upper body, drastically improving circulation.
And the key there is that you are doing it without spiking your heart rate.
Right.
Or flooding your system with cortisol the way you might during like a high-intensity interval workout.
Exactly. You're building a massive cardiovascular engine, but you're doing it quietly.
Quietly, I like that. But the legs are only half the pump, right? The breathing mechanism here is entirely different from the default way most people breathe.
Very different.
I mean, you've probably been told a million times to take a deep breath when you're stressed, and usually that means puffing your chest out and raising your shoulders up to your ears.
Right, that's shallow apical breathing. The texts emphasize that the hand form forces the diaphragm to expand downwards instead.
Okay.
Because you maintain a strictly erect posture with a relaxed, slightly hollowed chest, the lungs literally have nowhere to expand but down toward the abdomen.
And that downward pressure isn't just about getting more oxygen. This is where the thesis gets so fascinating to me. That rhythmic rising and falling of the diaphragm actually acts as a mechanical massage for your internal organs.
Yes.
It is literally pushing down against the liver, the stomach, the intestine.
It physically manipulates the viscera. This aids peristalsis in the gut, it promotes digestion, and it helps prevent stagnation in the organs.
That is wild.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the slow diaphragmatic breathing is also doing something profound to your nervous system. By consciously slowing the breath and making the movements perfectly smooth, you stimulate the vagus nerve.
Which dictates our stress response.
Right. It forces your body to shift out of the sympathetic nervous
To
system.
the fight or flight state.
Exactly, that modern stressed out state. It shifts you into the parasympathetic state, the rest and digest mode.
Right.
And when you do that, your brain begins releasing endorphins, which are your body's natural painkillers and happiness chemicals. So this slow movement is actively combating the biochemical stress of a sedentary lifestyle.
And that downward pressure from the diaphragm isn't just massaging organs in isolation either. It's actively tugging on the connective tissue that encases them, which introduces us to the mechanics of the fascia suit.
The fascia suit. Yeah, the fascial system is a continuous web of connective tissue that wraps around every single muscle, bone, and organ in the body.
It's everywhere.
It isn't a collection of separate parts. It is one unified net.
And the thesis explores how the postures in the hand form are literally designed to stretch this web via a concept called biotensegrity.
Yeah, think of biotensegrity like a spider web.
Okay.
The structure is held together by a continuous balance of tension. You pull one corner of the spider web, the entire web feels the pull.
Which totally explains why one of the grandmasters in the text stated that the specific lower body posture, snake creeps down, is literally all the stretching exercise a human being needs.
It seems crazy, right?
It seems completely crazy that one single stance is enough. But if pulling the web at the bottom of a deep stance stretches the fibers all the way up through the spine to the neck, then it makes perfect sense.
Because it's a non-local effect.
Yeah.
You are tensioning the entire suit at once, creating structural resilience throughout the whole body.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. We have to talk about that wild statistic from the beginning, the tongue hack.
Oh, yes.
In the foundational instructions, you are told to keep your mouth gently closed and touch the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth.
Right.
Now, the traditional texts say this increases saliva, which aids digestion and, prevents you from biting your tongue in an altercation, sure. But the thesis highlights a modern pilot study by Devika that looked at this exact tongue placement.
Yeah, the DeVico study measured isometric knee flexion, essentially, how much force the leg muscles can generate.
Mm-hmm.
And they found that just by placing the tongue against the hard palate, peak torque in the knee increased by 30%.
30%.
It's massive.
From moving a tiny muscle in your mouth? How does the tongue even communicate with the knee?
It goes right back to the fascia suit we were just talking about. There is a specific fascial line, often referred to as the deep front line, that connects the muscles of the tongue, runs down through the neck, connects to the diaphragm, goes through the psoas muscles deep in the core, and goes all the way down to the knees.
So it's basically a structural anchor.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
By pressing the tongue up, you are anchoring the top of that fascial line, creating optimal tension that provides structural stability for the lower body to generate maximum force.
It turns the body into a fully sealed hydraulic system.
That's a great way to describe it.
Just by standing in your living room, following an online form, bending your knees, breathing downwards, and placing your tongue on the roof of your mouth, you are pumping blood, massaging organs, and increasing your leg strength by 30%.
It is just a phenomenal demonstration of how deeply interconnected our anatomy really is.
But this brings us to the second half of the promise, self-defense.
Right.
And frankly, this is where the contradiction feels the most glaring. We've established that the slow, at-home practice builds this incredibly robust physical engine. But if you are moving at a fraction of normal speed, how does this actually translate into fighting an opponent who's moving at full speed?
Well, it requires a complete paradigm shift regarding how physical conflict even works.
Okay.
The core philosophy here is yin and yang. The foundational idea that softness overcomes hardness and that sensitivity defeats brawn.
Hey, wait. Physics dictates that force against force mathematically favors the heavier mass. If a 200-pound attacker is charging forward with a strike, 4 ounces of pressure cannot physically stop them. Momentum dictates the lighter person gets crushed. So what is the actual mechanism at play here?
If you attempt to meet their force directly, yes, the bigger, stronger person wins every time. But Tai Chi rejects the premise of meeting force altogether.
Interesting.
Instead, it relies on 2 interlinked concepts, yielding and adherence.
The texts compare this to acting like a physical radar system.
Adherence means maintaining extremely light, soft contact with an opponent's limbs. You don't grab them and you don't push back against their strike, you simply stick to them.
Okay.
Because your own muscles are completely relaxed from your slow practice, your tactile sensitivity, your proprioception is hyper-heightened. You can physically feel the muscular tension building in their arm before they fully commit to emotion.
So what does this all mean when you're actually facing a threat? You feel their intent, and then what?
The moment you detect the direction of their force, you yield. You allow their momentum to continue exactly in the direction they want it to go, effectively letting them fall forward into a void.
Wow.
You don't stop their mass, you let it overextend.
The text uses a brilliant analogy for this that completely made it click for me. It says, think of leading a massive 1,000-pound ox.
Oh, the ox analogy is perfect.
Right. If you tie a rope to its hind leg and try to drag it backward, you are fighting 1,000 pounds of mass. Force against force. You are going to get dragged through the mud.
Because you are directly opposing the vector of its momentum.
But if you take that same rope and tie it to a ring in the ox's nose, you only need to apply 4 ounces of pressure to the side to steer the beast.
Exactly.
You aren't stopping the mass, you are slightly altering its center of gravity. The 1,000-pound beast will follow that tiny redirect.
That is the exact mechanism. You use your adherence to feel their intent, yield to their momentum so they overextend their balance, and then apply that 4 ounces of pressure to steer their force into the ground or past you.
It's elegant.
But, and this is the crucial link, that hypersensitivity is physiologically impossible if you are tense.
Because your own tension blocks the signal?
Right. If your muscles are rigid, your nerve endings are dulled. You are completely deaf to their subtle movements, and you cannot yield fluidly.
Which completely validates the slow solo practice.
Yes.
You can only forge that kind of profound dynamic relaxation by moving slowly. The health practice of moving like molasses in your living room is literally wiring your nervous system with the tactile sensitivity needed for combat efficiency.
Exactly.
The health engine and the martial matrix are the exact same mechanism.
They are entirely symbiotic.
Yeah.
But to execute that martial yielding, or even to achieve that deep internal organ massage we talked about,
Right.
it requires more than just mechanical alignment. You cannot be mentally drafting an email while you do the hand form.
Right. The physical movements and the mental focus are completely inseparable. The Taoist concept at the heart of this is seeking tranquility in motion. And the focal point for that tranquility is the Tantian, that center of gravity located a few inches below your navel.
And the thesis references this really beautiful analogy from a grandmaster, comparing this mental focus to a hen incubating her eggs.
It's such a distinct visual, right? It isn't a forced furrowed brow kind of concentration. A hen doesn't squeeze the eggs to make them hatch faster.
No.
She just sits on them warmly, patiently, naturally. You simply let your attention rest on the Tantian while the body moves.
And by achieving that deep, unforced meditative state and combining it with the precise musculoskeletal adjustments, the suspended head, the relaxed chest, the anchored pelvis, you optimize the body's geometric pattern for energy flow.
Mm-hmm.
You're aligning the biotensegrity of your structure perfectly.
And this energy flow, or qi, isn't just described as a mystical internal phenomenon in the research either.
No, it's not.
The thesis explores this through the lens of the biofield.
This is where ancient theory and modern quantum physics are really beginning to shake hands. Science has established that biological processes in living organisms like your heartbeat, brain waves, cellular ion exchanges, they generate weak electromagnetic fields.
Okay.
The human biofield is hypothesized to be the complex collective output of those biological frequencies.
And these fields interact dynamically with the environment, which perfectly explains the visual we all know.
Right.
When you see a demonstration of a long form being practiced under the trees in a park, they aren't just out there to get some fresh air. According to this research, they are actively syncing their biofield with the Earth.
The thesis actually cites research demonstrating how environmental electromagnetic fields, like the ambient fields generated by trees or even during a thunderstorm, interact with biological entities.
That is amazing.
The human biofield operates on principles of resonance.
Mm-hmm.
When you practice in a natural open space, your optimized internal geometry allows you to tap into and resonate with those environmental frequencies.
You are essentially tuning your biological antenna.
Yeah. But this raises an important question, though. If our biofields require this connection to natural environments to thrive, what is happening to us in our modern, disconnected lives?
Oh, man.
Surrounded by artificial lighting, sitting in concrete boxes,
Yeah.
and completely isolated from the earth.
We're essentially starving our biofields.
Yeah.
But even if you are just practicing in your living room, doing an online course, that daily practice of the hand form acts as a bridge.
Exactly.
The internal geometry of the postures, combined with the tranquil mind, optimizes whatever energy is available. It builds a coherent internal field, restoring your connection to yourself.
It brings your biology back online.
So let's look at the full picture here. We started by looking at what appeared to be a slow, relaxing dance in the park. But what we've uncovered is a scientifically sound toolkit for total human optimization.
Truly.
By learning the block letters and moving slowly through the cursive hand form, you are building a robust second heart in your legs. You're using your diaphragm to internally massage your organs. You are anchoring your fascia with your tongue to increase structural strength by 30%, and literally wiring your nervous system to be able to redirect 1,000 pounds of brute force with 4 ounces of redirected energy.
It is a complete holistic system for thriving. And it relies on geometry and relaxation rather than exhaustion and force.
And the ultimate beauty of it all is its total accessibility. This entire universe of health and martial capability requires absolutely no specialized gym equipment and barely any floor space.
None.
It is entirely designed to be learned and mastered right at home. Which leaves us with one final thought for you to chew on as we wrap up this deep dive. If ancient practitioners discovered that holding specific mindful postures can literally rewire our fascial systems, turn our bodies into hydraulic pumps, and optimize our biofields for vitality, what is our default? Modern posture slumped over steering wheels and staring down at our smartphones for 8 hours a day, unintentionally programming our bodies to do.